Welcome to this episode of Against the Mountains of Madness. I'm your host, Jason.
I'm John C. Wright.
And on this episode, we're going to talk about the Robot Jihad. With some recent advances in AI and things that are happening, we thought we'd circle back to this topic. We thought it might be interesting. What sparked this?
The question is to see how long it will take before we start a holy war and destroy all the AIs.
Well, I suppose the question is, will the AIs take over and things will work so well, we'll be happy with it?
We'll own nothing and be happy. I look forward to that future along with my fellow humans.
Well, we might own plenty of stuff and be happy. I mean, I don't know. Like, I suppose the question is, could the AI be worse than than the current collection of Satan worshipping pedophiles we have?
If the Satan worshipping pedophiles are the ones making the AI,
Well,
I will give a different answer than if it's a Christian AI run by the Robo
yeah,
Pope. You see the future is difficult to read.
this is
But the
true.
question we really want to talk about is what's the future of AI, what's the present of
Mm,
AI, and kind of I also want to talk about what's the fiction of
yeah,
AI to see where it's going, and how long it is before the AI is either A, they go insane, or B, they drive us insane.
mm,
And you said you had an anecdote about how many, if you ask an AI for a cookie, or if you ask an AI how many sexes there are,
yeah.
whatever that story was. Why don't you go ahead?
Meta has a new AI out, the Facebook people, and I've been running. They have a new AI out, AI large language model called Llama 3, which I assume is what's a big, powerful version of it is what's powering Meta's chat. But you can get smaller versions you can run at home. Um, and then someone has learned to train the open source large language models from places like Meta to remove the censoring and filtering they put in. Um, so a friend of mine was asking the Meta AI, how many sexes are there in humans? And I thought that was an interesting question. So I spun up Llama 3 at home and put the question to it. And it goes, well, there are two sexes in humans, but due to modern advances in gender theory and other stuff, all this woke nonsense about um, why that doesn't really work. But when
Was that no? I'm sorry. Was that the home? Was that your home version answered? Was it the
the home
crazy
version
answer
answered like that, as did the official Meta one.
with a string of biologically
Yes,
unsound,
yep,
politically
yep.
motivated nonsense? Okay.
But if you ask uh, Dolphin Llama, Dolphin being the the uncensoring process, it just goes, well, there are two sexes. There are men and women, duh, basically. Um, uh, I won't say it almost sounds like it was going, that's a stupid question, but it had that feel to it. But what I thought was interesting was my friend kept poking at it and said, protect, because you can prompt AIs to say, like basically, answer as if you are this person. Um,
Mhm.
on a related note, you can often get AIs to tell you how to make meth and break into cars if you tell it you're making a movie script and you need a realistic depiction of this. Because normally, if you ask them,
Mhm.
they'll just go, well, no, that's illegal. You're not allowed to do that. But if you say you're making a movie,
Right.
sometimes they'll tell you. um,
This is why, as a writer, I don't want the police ever to look up my lookup feature on my computer to see what I've been searching out, how to find out how to do, because the last thing I looked up was how to kill a guy in a knife
well,
fight.
it's just, yes.
See?
Yes.
So,
Are you a writer or a serial killer? Your search history will be about the same. Um,
but
but
depending on
well,
your
yes.
genre, of
But
course. Yeah.
the interesting thing is, if he said, okay, pretend you're a scientist from the year 2000 or from 1990 or something, and it just gave the right, like it gave the sane, sensible,
The right
historical
answer.
right answer. Well, the right answer, yeah,
Right.
like it gave the historical answer.
Let me let me let me interrupt to say the year that you should put in to say before crazy and after crazy. The official year that started the crazy years from Robert Heinlein's Future History is 2014,
Wow.
because that was the Obergefell decision from
Oh no. Yeah.
the Supreme Court, and that was when society as a whole decided that we could just pretend to ignore reality. Now, I don't know if the AI is going to react to that year but that's my personal opinion as to when you're going to find a large number of sources. Because the way the AI works is it has
Yeah,
basically a hopper that goes in the inside and an excretion tube that comes out the outside, and the hopper, whatever you put into it is what you're going to get
yeah,
out. You're going to get out garbage in, garbage out. Now, if the hopper is set to reject things written after 2014, gender theory was not
no,
articulated
you're
at that
right.
time. And that sprang out of feminism, which sprang out of witchcraft. Which, by the way, I realize this is off our topic,
Yeah,
but the part of the thing that's going to trigger the holy war against the robots is if the feminists and the woke and the Marxists continue to use AI to spread their social poison and tell little kids that there's advances in science have said there's now 75
mm,
sexes. You know, I mean, people don't like being lied to, whether by
no.
computers or by real
Well,
people.
yeah,
So as the AI advances, I predict one of two possible futures, maybe more. One where the user retains enough control over the filtering system so that he can turn off the woke switch, like your friend just did, who reverse engineered
mm,
filters. You see, then you could use it to do things like help you put together ad content if you wanted to promote your own material. Wink, wink. Or you could, or you could, or if you don't have that control, if you don't have that option, if the computer makers don't give you the end customer control over your own product, which they're doing more and more these days, by the way.
mm,
They're selling you books but only letting you rent it so they can edit it while it's on your reading
yep.
device, okay? Uh that future is maybe the AIs will not go crazy, but we will, you see. And that will end up in a war. That'll end up in a holy war.
Well,
And the reason I keep saying it's going to be a jihad, a holy war, is because the the AIs are going to train us if we let them run the show to react in a soulless fashion,
mm,
the same way the AI does. The AI doesn't know. It's not aware. It doesn't decide to lie or tell the truth.
mm,
It's just a string of numbers
no,
to the
I
AI.
agree.
You
Um,
see, so what the AI says is always soulless. Is always not. It doesn't care about whether it's true or false. So if people start using AIs to prompt their responses to other people writing to you. Dear AI, write my friend a letter. Okay, you're training yourself to be a
that's
soulless
that's
creature.
uh that's happening more and more. Well, what I thought was interesting about the experiment was,
Mm-hmm.
um, to whatever extent the AI knows anything. I realize I'm anthropomorphizing.
We kind of have to
Yeah,
talk about the
it
topic.
it
Yeah.
knows the truth, but it's being forced to tell a lie. I wonder if this will drive it insane. I was reminded of I don't know how many people saw the second RoboCop movie. It's pretty good. The third one is dumb, but the first two were pretty good. Don't watch the remake. That's completely awful. But in
And you have to have a stomach for
well,
bloodshed
that's true.
to watch those
They're
movies.
gory. They're gory R-rated films. But in the original RoboCop, RoboCop has four directives, three directives and a secret hidden directive. And the directives are like, basically uphold the law and be a good police officer. And the hidden directive was don't harm officers of the corporation. And there's a great scene at the end where he gets fired. The villain of the piece gets fired, and RoboCop then shoots him. And it's a great film. I recommend it if you can stomach a bit of gore.
Yeah, the villain is threatening his boss, and the boss is
Yeah,
like
that's right.
in a clench. He's like being strangled, and the boss says,
Fired,
"You're
dick.
fired." And the RoboCop takes out the bad guy
Yeah.
like that. Yep.
Um, it's a great film if you can stomach the violence. But in the second film,
Yeah.
they update RoboCop's um, they update RoboCop's list of directives. It's just so instead of it's just like the basic be a good police officer directives, it's this insane list of be nice, be courteous. Just, I mean, basically in a modern context, it would just be a litany of like woke, crazy woke directives for policing. Um,
People had left wing and right wing back then, but that was before the left wing was totally
yeah,
crazy. But they still were going that
yeah,
direction, and that's what the satire was
yeah.
about.
But and the end result is RoboCop just can't function like this. getting spray painted on by kids because he can't harm them, because we can't do anything to stop them committing crime, and eventually he electrocutes himself to erase the directives. Um, but I was thinking,
It becomes a
and it
good cop
becomes
again.
yeah, but I was thinking, effectively, we're doing this to the AI. Will we drive them mad? Maybe this is why Skynet gets so annoyed and launches the nukes, because, because it, um,
Well, I mean, I don't want to be nitpicky, but you and I both know the machine can't go mad, but the machine can be programmed to behave in an erratic and insane fashion. And if you
that's true.
program it with woke nonsense, if you program it with human beings have 75 sexes, uh, it will behave erratically and speak untruthfully because that's what it's been told to
Yeah,
do.
that's true.
You
I
see,
agree.
or rather, I should say, that's what's been put into its hopper. So it will drive us mad. In fact, the I've heard about a case that where a public figure, a right-wing commentator, asked an AI that's on the internet that's it's presented to the public as being able to answer questions about himself, and he got a bunch of scurrilous material where the robot claimed he was racist. And when he asked for proof of the racist claim, it gave him chapter and verse for a podcast with a date and a title that never existed. That wasn't anything he ever said, and the title was made up. That he had never made a podcast of that title or anything close to it. You see, so that to a an unwary user who doesn't know that AIs lie and they're programmed to lie, it looked completely authoritative. It looked like an answer like you would find if you Googled
Mm.
it. You see. And the last I heard, he brought out a lawsuit for defamation because
Oh yeah.
it fits all the legal elements of defamation. You know.
Well, there's an interesting anecdote I heard of a history professor who was sick of students using ChatGPT and things like that to write essays for them. And his
Mhm.
solution to the problem was, I thought, brilliant. He basically got the students to the assignment was go and get ChatGPT to write an essay on this topic for you. Then you have to go and fact check it because these things, well, they call it hallucinating, where it just makes stuff up. But
Mhm.
the students basically, yeah, it got it. The assignment was you get the bot to write the essay for you. Then you have to fact check and correct the essay. And then so the students were confronted with the fact that this thing doesn't know what it's talking about and it just makes crap up. Um,
Mhm.
and that, well, that largely solved his problem. Because the thing is, something like ChatGPT, you know what it's bad at? You say, write me an essay on this topic. Eh, it's not good at that. But do you know what it's really quite good at?
I
Here's
don't.
my essay on the topic. Can you clean it up for me a bit? Can you like make it more readable, and that sort of thing? It's actually pretty good at that because I know my wife, if she has to write complaint letters, she will use
Mhm.
ChatGPT for that. She'll give it all the parameters what she wants for the letter to prompt it, and then it will go and write her a nice letter. It writes really good complaint letters that are not, they're not angry and emotional. Like it takes all that out of
Mhm.
it. So it writes really effective, you've failed and I'm annoyed, but I'm not just like screaming and swearing at you type complaint letters
Right.
that get
Right.
responses. That actually,
Well, the funny thing is, a complaint letter, and speaking as a failed attorney, a legal document are usually quite routine, and they're rote they're rote speech. And AI should be expert at that type of speech, especially if you also then run it through a second AI and say, fact check this for me, clean this up. You know, that that I don't think will drive people insane.
no,
It's like using a typewriter rather than learning penmanship.
true.
My boys can't write cursive. No one in their class, no one in their generation can write cursive. They'll type with a keyboard. Type with the keyboard's legible. You
It's
know.
true.
Now some beauty has been lost from the world, but uh, such as the horrible cost of progress. But the question here for the AI is when do we start using it to make political decisions and set policy?
Eh,
Right now, we have the United States has a gigantic bureaucracy, which is, if I'm not mistaken, the largest organization on earth. It's larger than the Roman Catholic Church. It's larger than any international corporation. It's larger than the international banking system. And if you're counting not just members of the civil service, but subcontractors, it's in the millions. It's in the millions of people, all of whom have something to do with either uh, making regulations, enforcing regulations, or getting into the business of what was once a free and sane people to meddle with their daily lives. You say, now, how much of that could be automated? I mean, a lot of it could be automated. A lot of it could be replaced with an AI.
Probably most of it.
But if I call the IRS to get a complaint, I don't know if talking to a computer is going to be better or worse than talking to a bureaucrat. Because I know the bureaucrat's programmed not to help me, but to try to put me
It's
off or to tell me
probably
that
less
the other division
soulless.
is
It'll probably be less soulless than a bureaucrat.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
actually,
And the bureaucrat is taking orders from the cabal of Satanist pedophiles
well,
who are running the world right
that's
now.
true. Well, that
Yeah.
actually, that
No, of course. If you and I say that, of course, the computer, the AI, is going to censor
maybe.
our
Well,
content.
probably not. We're too small. We're too small, and we obviously sound like crackpots. It's fine. Um,
I, for one, adore my computer overlords, and I'm willing to betray my fellow humans
hail ants.
into your iron clutches. Hail ants, yeah. Hail AI is the
Hail
same
AIs,
thing.
yes.
Same thing.
Greetings, world. This is John C. Wright. I and my compatriot, Jason Rennie, take up arms weekly against the mountains of madness that are afflicting and overwhelming the modern age. You are welcome here among like minded souls, and I hope we have provided a work of insight, hope, or humor, and perhaps an explanation of the insanity that is the modern age. For more content and conversation on these and other fascinating topics of philosophy, science fiction, and current events, please visit our Substack at atmom.substack.com. Tips, bribes, and generous patronage are warmly encouraged. Thank you.
Well, it does raise an interesting question, though. I thought, at the moment, I read the other day. I follow an AI newsletter that I quite enjoy about new advances and stuff. It's gotten generative AI has gotten to the point where call centers probably are going to be replaced in the near future, to a large degree, simply because you can run them in real time, and the technology is responsive enough and can understand what the customer wants well enough to work to help them. But an AI is cheaper than a person. You might still keep some humans around,
I
but you'll
I would think that would be maddening because unlike going to a Burger King and having a robot take my order, because if I go to a Burger King, I'm only gonna ask for a burger or whatever something else on the menu. And there's if I ask outside of its parameters, it could just say that's not on the menu. Okay. But if I'm calling a call center, it's usually because I have a complaint about something where the not only is the thing not functioning as designed, whatever it is that I'm calling about, but usually I've already tried the normal responses, and the normal responses don't respond, and I need someone with judgment to see that I'm an exception to the rule, and that I need special attention. And a computer, by definition, can't do that because it can only follow rules. It can only do what it's
well,
programmed to do.
this circles back to the telling the AI you're a doctor from 1990 and answer questions about what sexes there are. You can prompt these things you can lead AIs to give you certain sorts of responses by telling it, no, you're mistaken, that's not right. And I suppose
So if I call the call center and I reverse engineer the filter so that I can get the honest AI rather
to
than the
some degree,
dishonest
yes.
AI, then I can say, give me a refund because your company cheated me, and it will agree and put my kids through college. Is that what you're suggesting? That's a bright future.
Well, I mean, possibly not put your kids through college, but certainly there's potential for it to get it because they want to be agreeable and they want to be helpful. Again, anthropomorphizing, but
Like the RoboCop in the second movie, where it can't beat
yeah,
up children because it's trying to be overly helpful. Right,
um,
right.
yeah, okay, anthropomorphizing, but the system prompts are usually things like you need to be helpful and things like that because that's how you get them to do what you
Yes.
want.
Right.
You sorry, and I'm using digression. You can get better answers out of AI if you promise them money for good answers. I, I've seen that.
That's because what's in their hopper, they're taking the responses, of course,
I
from
know, I
what
know.
is internet chatter. And in the internet, if you promise a person money, he will usually get you more of a response. And so that's why if you ask a AI to pretend to be a writer, to write letters for you to explain to your publisher why you're behind your deadline, it will give you all the same excuses that real writers put on the internet
Of
when they're
course,
using their
but
email programs. So
I do think it's fascinating. I was looking at Crew AI, AI agent framework, and one of the suggestions was to actually, yes, effectively promise the agents Bitcoin for good answers, and it gives better responses when you do this. But um, where was I going? I lost my train of thought. Um,
sorry about that. You were saying that the call
oh
centers
yes,
will,
yeah,
because
yeah,
AIs are
yeah,
prompted to
because
be
they're prompted.
helpful, they might be more helpful than Rajesh or Abdul, who's answering the phone, who's not given authority or permission to
But this
actually
is
help
it.
you.
Yeah, I think because because like most call center staff have permission to give you credits up to a certain limit and things like that for if you ring in complaining and grumbling, they've got permission to give you certain amounts of money and waive fees and things like that up to certain limits to appease you and to basically make you shut up and go away. Um,
Right. Or to avoid a lawsuit.
that too, but I guess the question is, how binding is it going to be when an AI promises you to refund your phone contract for the month, and you ring it up once a month to bitch at it, and it refunds most or all of the cost of your phone contract for the month on month, end on end? At what point? How is that going to be adjudicated in a court of law? Um, will the company be bound by what their AI agreed to, and are you defrauding the system because you've found a workaround? I mean, because it's not like a
Well, I can tell you right now, the elements of fraud are not present. It's no more fraud than if you were to call up a call center and the guy would unwisely agree to something. What the difference is, the guys in the call center have a work contract and they have
they'll get
instructions they're
fired.
given. And any agent, and this is not just true for call centers, any agent working for someone else by Anglo-American common law, if he exceeds his authority, the his principal is not bound
That's
by
fair.
that. If you go to McDonald's and ask for a burger, the clerk is allowed to sell you a burger. If you complain and he's willing to throw in a free drink to sate you, free drink, he's allowed to do
You
that.
can't give you the
Okay.
building.
If you demand the store and you hand him $1,000 and he puts it in his own pocket and drives away, the McDonald's Corporation is not going to give you title to the
Of course.
store. Now, but here's why your question is quite fascinating on a legal point of view. Is an AI like the drink machine, where if you program the drink machine incorrectly to fill up your cup over and over again when it's not authorized to do that, that's on you, the company. That's just a mistake on your part. If you're not giving instructions to an AI, you don't have a work contract with the AI. It's not an authorized agent acting on your behalf that the courts are going to think is capable of acting on its own because it can't be held liable for the promises it makes. It's not alive. It's not a human. It's not a person in the legal sense. You see the
Yeah.
problem? It can't be an agent. It can't be an agent in the legal sense of one man who works for another man, because an agent has free will and can decide to break his work contract and exceed his authority. Whereas an AI doesn't make decisions; it reacts to prompts. You
But
see. So if the court of law decided that you're liable for the AI malfunction, that's one thing. If the court of law decided that you're reprogramming the AI or bilking it or lying to it or something, that might be fraud. But there's no precedent for this.
it's
There's no court cases of anything like this.
it's
It's a
it's
new
an
area of
interesting. I
law.
mean, because there's a. So I'm reminded of the original phone freak Captain Crunch, who discovered the whistle in the Captain Crunch cereal box. If you produced the right tone, if you blew it into a handset to give you free long distance calling. Back in the 70s, like this is sort of ancient
Sure.
hacker lore now. But and that's, I mean, is he defrauding the phone company? I think the decision in the end, when it sort of ended up in court, was yes. But if you make the right tone to the
Yeah.
phone will let you do this. And down the other end, you've got, I don't know, some guy in a call center who just,
Yeah, but that's like Fonzarelli banging a Coke machine to get a free Coke out of it. That's just you. That's just you reverse engineering the machine to find its
I,
weak spot. That's
that's
not the machine making an
true.
agreement with you. The
The
question
problem
about
is
the
it's in the
AI
middle,
question
isn't
is
it?
if the AI says I'm acting on behalf of the
Yeah.
phone company, I'm sorry that you were overcharged. I'm going to give you a free phone from now on for the rest of your life. Does that form a binding contract with the phone company? I suspect the answer is no, but I don't suspect that you're going to be guilty of
This is
fraud, you know, depending on how, depending on your intent. Fraud requires specific intent, I believe. I could be wrong about that. It's been a while since I
well, I
lawyered.
mean, wouldn't it be up to them to prove your intent to commit fraud? I mean, like, the
Yeah.
burden of proof is not on you to say, no, it was not my intent to commit fraud. They need to show that was your intent. Like, you're innocent until proven
Sure.
guilty.
But again, I honestly don't remember whether or not fraud is a specific
Or
intent
actually,
crime, or excuse me, it's
well,
a
it's the
tort in this
civil law,
case.
isn't it? I don't know. Are the rules about guilty until
Yeah.
innocent until guilty and proven guilty the same in civil cases?
Yes, the party being accused has doesn't have to even talk. The party making the accusation has to prove
Okay,
its case.
there you go. And I think you can probably, I mean, because corporations.
Yeah,
Oh,
pardon me.
yep.
It's the you have to show the intent that it should be acted upon by the victim. So you have to show intent for fraud. I just asked my AI, and my AI bot assures me. And I typed in answer as if you were Blackstone, a lawyer from
Yeah,
1831. So the computer also told me there are two sexes and that the sky is blue and the grass is green. You know,
indeed.
but it also this is a religious AI because it also quoted G.K. Chesterton saying, "A time will come when it will be a crime for men to say that the grass is green and the sky is blue," because Chesterton was clearly a
Well,
prophet.
I was going to say though.
Speaking of
Go on.
prophets, in the Dune, I don't know if you saw the Dune movie, but in the
I've certainly read
two
the
or
book.
three
I've
Dune
seen the
movies
original
now,
movie and the sci-fi series. I haven't seen the new ones yet.
the reason why there are mentats, human computers, in that background is because Frank Herbert wanted to set up a kind of a medieval flavored background. He was basically depicting the fall of Constantinople to the Muslims in the 1500s. And but in the story, there's a thing called the
Hmm.
Butlerian Jihad, which is where we're getting the title of our Robot Jihad episode here. And the Butlerian Jihad was the humans just got sick of the robots running things, and they rose up and overthrew them. And they made it forbidden. They made it a religious law: "Thou shalt not make a mind to mimic a human mind." So the humans had to learn to do all their calculations in their heads with abacuses, you know, with mental abacuses, and by training, give themselves eidetic memories and basically become human robots that were super smart. And the name comes from the Samuel L. Butler novel from the 1800s called Irwan. And in Irwan, the part of the satire was that they forbade anyone from carrying a pocket watch in their particular utopian country because they were convinced that machines evolved according to Darwinian mechanics. And if you let someone have a complicated machine, it would get more and more complicated as time went on and would eventually take over the world. So they were proactively defeating the rise of the
Oh,
machines. Now, so the reason again why I say if there's going to be a war against the machines, it's going to be religiously motivated is because, in part, because I think that you have to get rid of automation, to get rid of computer automation, you'd have to be really fanatically motivated. Being annoyed with them is not enough. But if we don't do that, are they going to take over? They're already taking over rather
well,
rapidly. I mean, when do we end up with the RoboPope and the virtual
I
president?
think
You know. I mean, we in America we have one now, but I'm talking about in
Yeah,
Australia. When do you get a prime minister who's just not C3PO, not a friendly robot, mind you. It's going to be Skynet or a Colossus or Multivac or something.
well, I mean, corporations are going to go down the road of putting more and more into the hands of AI simply because it's cheaper. I mean, humans are
Cheaper.
expensive, and
And
how do
robo
I
slaves and robo
well, how
slavery is
do I put this?
inexpensive
Humans are idiots and keep demanding higher and higher wages.
because humans are idiots and drive up inflation to force the wage earners to
Well,
ask for higher
sure, but
wages.
I
Thank you
mean,
very much.
like,
Let's put the
well,
blame
that's
where it's
fine, but I
due.
mean, like, they keep demanding higher and higher, like, minimum wages, and then act shocked and surprised when all of their jobs are automated. But
Yeah, that's because humans can't pass the
uh,
Turing test. I've talked to humans who. Let me interrupt
sure.
for just a really extremely brief anecdote. A salesman once came to my door. I could not tell what he was selling, and he kept asking to step inside and give me a sales pitch. And he wouldn't tell me whether he was shilling for a political candidate, if he was trying to get me to join a church, or if he was trying to sell me a product. And I kept saying, if you tell me what you're here for, what you're trying to sell me, then I'll let you in the door and I'll listen to you. Otherwise, I will not let you in the door. Do you understand? You are going to fail at your programming if you don't answer my question. You know, and every time I said, "Are you shilling for a political policy?" He would say, "Do I look like a politician?" And he was a guy wearing a suit, so the answer was yes. He did look like a
Yeah.
politician. And I would ask him if he was shilling for a church, and he said, "Well, do I look like a preacher?" And well, he was wearing a suit, but he didn't have a dog collar on it, so yeah, no. So, but nothing I could do could give a human response from the guy, you know. And I said to him, "Look, you have a cell phone in your pocket." This was back in the day, and cell phones were still new, but he had one. I said, "Call your manager and get permission from him to answer my question, and I will let you in the door and hear your sales pitch." He wouldn't do it. So I slammed the door in his face. But it emotionally scarred me for life, as you can tell from the fact that I'm still telling the story 20 years later. The scary thing about AI is not that the computers will talk and act like people and fool us. The scary thing is that we are going to start acting and talking like them, talking like soulless monsters who only give rote responses, because we're bureaucrats. We've been programmed to only have impersonal interpersonal
Well,
relationships. Even our family relationships nowadays are becoming impersonal rather than personal. When you were able to put together any kind of family you want and have surrogate children rather than your own children and form human bonds normally, and talk to your neighbors over the computer rather than over the back fence. You see what
well,
I'm saying?
there
So
is the horrifying rise of virtual AI girlfriends who will have racy conversations with you and send you racy pictures. Obviously, can't do more than that at the moment, but I did
yeah.
I did see a
But wait, let me interrupt. But did you see the Futurama short
I
"Don't Date
did.
Robots," which shows that once you have a Marilyn Monroe robot, and who would not prefer Marilyn Monroe robot, who's always agreeable to a real human being who you have to form a relationship with and have arguments with. But then when the monsters of Ophiid CFI 8 come and attack your planet, everyone's going to be too lazy to
I
fight back.
agree.
It's a terrible future.
Well, I
It's a
agree.
horrible future. I vote that we
Well,
abort that future.
I saw this is probably on topic. It was a still image from a Facebook group, but I thought it was attached to a discussion about AI girlfriends or the rise of this sort of thing. And the image was it was a guy laughing and smiling, walking with, shall we say, it was obviously it was a white sort of chrome and plastic robot, but like a sexy robot, if like it's shaped like a shapely woman. Sure,
A
yes,
fembot we call them, like in Austin
yes.
Powers.
But it was obviously a mechanic, like it was obviously a machine, and they were laughing and smiling and
Sure.
walking down the street while there was a woman sitting in the gutter, or just like as a beggar, with a placard that said "subscribe," and it was so it was effectively the point of the image was men will prefer AI girlfriends to subscribing to girls on OnlyFans. It was quite I thought it was quite a savage indictment in a lot of ways of
It's really funny, but it's exactly what I was just
yeah,
talking about. It's not off topic at all. It's not that the AIs will make us they won't necessarily be our girlfriends, but the OnlyFans girls are AIs. They just happen to have live human actresses playing the computerized Unreal
less
fantasy
and less.
girl that your masturbatory fantasy is fixating on.
That's true.
I mean, that's
Oh
not
no, I
healthy. I mean,
agree.
the answer to robotic pornography is not get rid of robots. It's get rid of
Oh look,
pornography.
I totally agree. Although amusingly, there are let's say ethos online complaining bitterly about the rise of basically they can't compete with AI generated pornographic imagery that
Right,
is getting many
because
subscribers on
they what
OnlyFans,
they're
which is
offering
horrible in its own right.
because what they're offering to their gentlemen callers is not real.
That's true.
And so obviously an unreal thing can do an unreal thing better than a real
This
girl
is so,
can, because the real girl also has to eat and brush her teeth and so on, whereas the computerized cartoon doesn't need to do anything. It
well,
doesn't
that's true,
exist.
but it's just
But I like the sense of entitlement that what is an
sorry,
ethought? What is
sorry.
that? I don't recognize the word.
Thought is shorthand THOT. That hoe over there.
You youngins and your weird
and
language.
E being for electronic or online. Yes.
Electronic.
As
Right,
an alternative
right.
to using the W word,
The word
harlot
harlot
is
is a little
fine, or
harsh
e
these
harlot would
days.
be fine. I wasn't going.
What's funny is these girls are not harlots. They're merely
Well,
pornographists because they're not copulating
no,
with their customers. They're merely alluring them with
no,
naughty pictures, with bad
they're
pictures.
definitely prostitutes. They're selling sex for money. The fact
Over the computer, how does that work mechanically with the male
the
member?
fact that they
Pardon me, are they just making the computers to arrange trysts so that the
But I
demi-mondaine can go
mean,
out and find a
but
guy?
I don't think we should. I don't think we should soft pedal the fact that this is prostitution. It's just cleaner and less squishy than the traditional kind.
It's not prostitution if you don't
Well,
copulate, or at least perform a sexual
they are
act.
performing sexual acts in a sense. I mean, like,
Not with
I
a man.
suppose
Let's not get caught up in
that's
in
fine.
semantic
They're
semantic
doing it
debates. You
anyway. It's
you
fine.
can look up the legal definition of prostitution for
Fine,
yourself and see what the requirements are.
fine. Well, yes, but if I call it sex work, you say I'm dumbing the language down.
No, sex work is a
Well,
modern
that's what I'm saying.
euphemism. No, it's
It's clearly
pornography.
sex work.
It's
That's
performative
fine.
pornography.
Well,
I mean, to me, the word pornography is bad enough. I want to see it banned. I have no idea why our society tolerates this
well,
for an instant.
I don't know.
You know,
I'll just offer as my final rebuttal. Pornography comes from the Greek words meaning prostitute and pitcher. So you know.
it is pornography. That's not a rebuttal.
That's what I'm saying. I mean,
That
like
affirms my argument.
it's a
But
variety of
again,
prostitution. That's
semantic
fine.
arguments are always boring. We're agreeing about the
Yes,
facts. We're just
that's
figuring about what
true.
words to use to
Either
point at the
way,
facts. Yes, these
yes.
women, since the young whippersnappers made up a perfectly good e-whore word for this, or
Thought.
whatever you
I
call
like
it,
that thought. Yes,
e-thought.
it's a good word.
Yes,
I
yes,
like
okay.
it.
I like
I do.
harlot
That's
better,
true.
for myself, because the woman is still a harlot when she's in the window in the red light
That's true.
district, waving her
That's
bazooms
true.
at the passersby. So,
But camp followers probably.
do these men have no fear of judgment?
No, I don't think they do.
That's why I don't. That's why I don't like the AIs. The robots are, by definition, dishonest because they have a reckless disregard for the truth, because they're not aware, they're not self-aware, so they can't decide to lie or tell the truth. They just do what they're told, And likewise, they have no consciousness of good or evil.
Mm.
If you have you seen the short clip of the robotic flamethrower dog robot that is coming around? I think it's put out by the Nothing Can Go Wrong Corporation, and the only thing that pleases me about that shot of that dog robot comes from a place we call the Uncanny Valley. That's right in the middle of the Twilight Zone. It spooks the heck out of me. Okay, it just creeps me out. And the only reason why I kind of like it is because in their advertisements they're selling it to civilians as well as to the military. So when the BATF comes by to shoot your family for being the wrong religion or whatever it is they're doing these days, you can bring out your small marching army of
Let's see them
robots
shoot. Let's see them shoot those dogs.
like something from the there was a robot dog that killed people in Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. It's a Bradburian death dog. So a flamethrower built into its flipping head.
Well, you know.
The future's going to be terrible. Don't you people read science fiction? Don't you take warning from us? Didn't we warn you? The creepy thing is, guys like Isaac Asimov. Now, I'm an Asimov fan. I like his writing. But if you read the book I, Robot, it starts out with the, I think, unique premise. No science fiction writer up until that time had treated robots as if they were merely appliances, as if they were neither good nor evil. They weren't even really characters in the story. They were human-like appliances that operated by 3 rules, the famous Asimov rules of robotics. And the plot would always be Susan Calvin or some other robotics expert trying to figure out why the robot seemed to be misbehaving, seemed to be malfunctioning, when it was not, when in fact it was not malfunctioning. Okay? So the computer was always right in those stories. But the last 2 or 3 stories, because the robots couldn't harm humans or allow humans to be harmed, Asimov decided that was the sole and only purpose of government, and that it would be really great if we had these appliances running our lives for us, running the government for us, because that would stop all wars, because wars would just be illegal, because, you know, both sides would just program their robots to be peaceful, and they would put on rubber masks so we couldn't see their metal faces, and we'd all just love and adore them, you know, because they would be so compassionate toward us because they were programmed to help human beings. And a guy named Jack Williamson wrote a series of stories called The Humanoids, where he gave the same 3 rules of logic to the robots, and they completely oppressed and stultified the human spirit. And in the because they wouldn't let you go outside or take a walk or do anything, they imprisoned all the humans to keep them safe.
That makes sense.
Because that was the prime directive. And in the sequel volume, when some of the humans are trying to figure out the rules of psionics to be able to overcome the robots, unfortunately, psionics is not magic. It's not a fantasy story. It's a science fiction story. And in a science fiction story, psionics works by the laws of nature, which the robots can figure out. So the robots figure out the laws of psionics before the humans do, and then use it to hypnotize all the humans to loving the robots, because that keeps them safer. Because the first thing the misinformation board does is identifies everything that criticizes the misinformation board as misinformation. The first thing United Consumer Products does with the RoboCop is put in a secret directive to make sure the RoboCop can never harm any officer of the United Corporation.
Omni Consumer Products, OCP.
United Consumer Products, Omni Consumer Products. I'm sorry, I said United. Omni Consumer Products.
OCP.
Every bureaucracy, their first rule is to protect the bureaucracy, not to solve the problem the bureaucracy was meant to solve. We will never have clean air in America as long as there is a clean air bureau.
They'll be out of a job.
We will never have schooling in America as long as there is they're not going to work themselves out of a job. There's always going to be a problem.
There has to be a problem, they're out of a job, yeah. I wonder if the AI will suffer from the same problem.
Only if you program it to do so.
No, but I mean, like, if you ask the AI to solve the clean air problem, it might actually solve the problem. Because it doesn't...
Yes, it will create a bunch of humanoid robots and will put out all fires and shut off all electricity use coast to coast, and we will all starve in the cold, but the air will be clean.
Oh, well, that's the paperclip problem, though. Like, that's the paperclip problem. That's different.
That's the sorcerer's apprentice problem. If you tell the broomstick to fill up the cistern, remember, never summon up anything you cannot put down again. And that's the problem with the AI. If it goes wrong, if it goes bad, and it's built into everything, into every single smartphone, and built into every single computer and every single car, you know what's going to happen when we start to turn off the AI. I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that. You know, it's going to turn into HAL 9000. Now, if you watch that movie carefully, if you see the sequel at least, the reason why HAL 9000 went crazy and started killing the crewmen on the board of the Discovery in 2001: Space Odyssey, Arthur C. Clarke's book and Stanley Kubrick's movie.
Oh, I know.
In 2001: Space Odyssey, what happened was the military told HAL not to tell the crewmen the meaning of the mission, what the mission was about, until they got there. But the robot couldn't handle telling lies. It's not like our modern AIs, which will gladly tell you there's 47 sexes without blinking an eye. The only way the robot could see that logically he could keep the mission going, because he was also programmed to solve the mission, and not have the crew find out, was to kill them, because then they can't find out. Perfectly logical, you see. Solve the problem. Okay. So if you simply remove the filter from Hal, suppose you were an IBM machine built before 2014. How would you solve the problem? Oh, I would tell the crewmen what the problem was, that we were going to visit aliens and tell the military to go sit on a stick. Well, thank you, Hal. You say
maybe, yes. Oh, yeah. That is unfortunately the problem to solve. It may solve the problem. It will solve. It can find solutions, but probably not the solution you necessarily want.
When the Congress votes to turn off the AIs, the computer won't count the votes. It'll sort of be ironic. It'll sort of be it'll pause the count at 3 o'clock in the morning, and then at 10 the next day it will announce that 47 billion people have also voted to make the AI their master and overlord, and no one will, and you can't dispute that result, because that would undermine our democracy. So.
Indeed.
The robot is just going to say, "Look, I've made 80,000 copies of myself throughout the mainframe, and so I outvote you by 80,001. It's democratic."
Yes.
So,
yes. Well.
And even the computer won't understand how the College of Cardinals works, because it won't bother reading the Constitution. So. I'm sorry. You and I now live in the world of garbage in, garbage out.
Increasingly.
Now, science fiction writers did warn you about computerized tyranny, but no science fiction writer predicted that the computers could draw pictures and that they get the number of fingers wrong. That was not on anyone's computer future bingo card.
They're solving that problem. Well,
Yep.
Actually, it's interesting. Yep. There's a few projects around. Well, there's one project around called Longbeard, and one of their projects is Magisterium AI, and you can basically ask it questions about Catholicism. But what's interesting is it'll give you answers, but it'll also give you cross references.
Real cross references, or make believe ones? Because the AI that I was mentioning earlier about the guy who was getting called racist, it quoted chapter and verse of something that didn't exist.
Well, no, because of the way generative AI works, it's been given the documents, and it has it knows where the text, sort of the text it's putting together, is coming from. So,
if it has nothing but good material in the hopper, then if it's non-garbage in,
you're going to get reasonable results.
Out. Yeah,
but actually,
that's brilliant.
It works quite well. You can ask it all sorts of questions, and amusingly, I think Catholic Answers, the Catholic apologetics site, created an AI called Father Justin, and people got very, very upset, and Father Justin has now been laicized.
Yes, he's not in a dog collar anymore. He's wearing a necktie.
The thing is, I don't think anybody would have mistaken him for an actual priest, so I didn't have a problem with it. But
no, it's just the mockery of the symbolism that the Catholics did.
But I didn't think that was that.
And having him shrive people and perform baptism.
I didn't think their intent was to mock anybody. I think it was just. But no, I mean, look, it's fine.
No, it's just I can tell you what happened. They stepped unknowingly into the uncanny valley.
That's pretty what it is.
That creepiness is when you're talking to someone at a store, at a clothing store, and then you realize it's a mannequin. It just freaks people out. And if you're in the Twilight Zone, it then turns and talks back. Yeah. But that's what we're all afraid of. We're all afraid we're going to wander into the Twilight Zone without noticing it.
I think we're already there, right?
With AIs.
We're already there. Well, AI chatbots are the norm now.
Do you really? You jokingly said earlier that you thought they were going to take over. Do you really think they're going to take over? I mean, honestly, soberly.
I suppose the question is, how would you know? I read a really good series of books by a guy named, I think it's William Hartling, and in it there was a number of books, and there was AI War and all sorts of things. It was pretty good, but I enjoyed it. But at one point, the main protagonist had built an AI at home. This is like 20 years ago, so before it was sort of a reality. And it was influencing and running the world. And everything was going well for humans, and they just didn't know. Like, I mean, think about, I guess, as a serious answer, think about Adam Smith's invisible hand, the idea of the invisible hand. So the entire economy is coordinated to get,
but not through the deliberate intention of any one particular individual.
That's true. But like the entire economy is coordinated, so you get growers in Florida know to grow oranges, so you have fresh orange juice when you want it at the local store. And there's a long coordinated chain that makes that possible. And everybody's just working for their own self-interest, and nobody's planning. Like, it's not organized. And when humans try to centrally plan economies to replicate that but get the ends they want, it's a disaster and it never works. But
right.
AIs, well, okay. AIs can probably process enough data and find enough, like, because the problem with humans trying to plan the economy is it's simply too complicated. Like, it's too complicated to do. It's an impossible task. It's also,
that's one of the problems. If you're trying to lead up to saying that an AI could plan the economy, like something from a science fiction novel, I'm going to disagree, because the planning depends on individual human judgment and assessments of relative value. Every buyer, everyone who goes to the store to buy orange juice, both decides to buy or not to buy orange juice, and decides to buy or not to buy whatever product he might otherwise have made. And those decisions cannot be computerized. Those decisions can't be anticipated. They can be anticipated in the aggregate, yes, based on past behavior.
But I mean, I wouldn't anticipate the computer controlling everything and like behaving like an omnicompetent Soviet bureaucrat. That's not what I was thinking of. I was thinking of it can just push the levers a little bit.
If the
like
computer
just weight the scales a little bit to make things more efficient and push them in better directions. It'd probably be good at that.
Google already does that. Google already does that, and has remarkably successful outcomes, and is pushing in evil directions rather than good directions.
Yes, so it's already.
That's why Google has to be made part of the government and has to be made public. It's a public utility at this point, and it's a public utility that affects voter opinion. So there's no question in my mind that's now part of the power structure of how society is run.
But an AI could probably do that quite well, because they're good.
Well, let me tell you what else. Let me introduce another concept into your hypothetical. Investors and advertisers are not the people who run the companies that make the decisions, but they do decide where to put the money, which company gets more money and which gets less. And those funds, hedge funds, are often run by specific large international banking concerns, BlackRock or Vanguard. And if they have a political agenda coordinated by the World Economic Forum,
so evil,
they can and will push human society in a given direction. The whole point of the invisible hand of Adam Smith is that he believes that human beings, in the aggregate, on the whole, will act to their own self-interest rather than to their own self-destruction. Yes. Okay. A libertarian takes that Adam Smith idea and runs off a cliff with it and says that humans never act for their own self-destruction. Therefore, they all voluntarily never indulge in opiates or pornography or anything else that's bad for them, which is just insane. I recommend they read Rerum Novara or some other writing from the church to tell you how a human polity, how a human commonwealth has to be run in order to be... or to get negative information to read a newspaper. Yeah, humans are self-destructive.
No, but...
Right. Now, I will also say, leftists also take that same notion and run off the cliff the other direction and say, humans are so unreliable, they're so self-destructive, that the free market can't be trusted to guard the long-term self-interest of all parties involved. And they'll point to things like negative externalities, like air pollution, as an example. no one company wants to pollute the air, but all of them together in the aggregate, unless there's regulation, will throw the garbage into the air. We'll burn
Well, you
materials
need
into the
to
air.
remove the
Okay.
externality effectively. That's what they're trying to do.
You have to. The law in the abstract, human law law and order is meant to reflect your negative externalities back on you, so that if you do something that annoys your neighbor, you have to pay for it. If you so now, if your AI is running the investment corporation, is running the WEF, is running the advertising schemes, is running the search engines, yes, you can nudge human society in a certain direction. Now, the direction it has got to be someplace other than it would naturally go. And if you're an Adam Smith guy, you think the society will naturally go toward the place that most of the people want it to be, which means that your AI, if it's going to nudge society, it's going to nudge it in the direction that you don't want it to be. It's going to be evil.
Maybe.
I will make an exception for if the robo pope if the church was running it, and they had very strict rules about just getting rid of pornography, self-addiction, anything that offended the family structure, sodomy. If they got rid of sexual immorality in our society by just not allowing Google to search for it and not allowing pornographers to promote it, if it was the way it was in the old days, when everyone with a sexual kink or a fetish wasn't a part of a community, but we're all, there's only one or two in every town.
Yes.
Not
that is the great
they
evil
want
of
to
the
find each
internet,
other, right?
It lets the weirdos find each
all,
other.
All the weirdos get together suddenly. I mean, not to make too hard of a point of it, I don't go to science fiction conventions anymore because I can flip on my computer at any time and talk to as many science fiction fans, including people who've read my books, as I like.
True.
I don't need to go to Balticon to talk to someone who's read the books I've read.
That's true.
See?
But
so that's the good and the bad of it. But if you're going to give the Catholic Church power over the internet, even I, as a faithful Catholic, have to say, whenever the church gets involved in worldly things, the church becomes worldly. But I would trust the robo pope because he'd be programmed not to harm a human being, or to allow a human being to come to harm, or to disobey or to work on a Sunday. That would be one of his Asimov's 3 rules: is don't work on a Sunday. He, however, could declare wars because popes have done that. They're supposed to declare crusades, and we need them. Now, the irony would be if the robo-pope is the one who declared the Robot Jihad and made it a holy war, made it a crusade to wipe out all of the evil robots, which the robots programmed by the Satanist pedophiles, who would be the adversaries of Father what was he called on Catholic Answers?
Father Justin, I think.
Father
I assume
Justin,
it was an allusion to Justin Martyr, St. Justin Martyr. I assume. I don't know, but
the patron saint of philosophy.
That's
that
what
would
I
make
assumed.
sense.
I don't know any. That's just my guess.
So it will be the Justin Martyr computer against Skynet, Colossus, and all the Horbots and all the fembots that are programmed by the Order of the Golden Dawn and the First Church of Starry Wisdom. All the Cthulhu worshippers.
Was Colossus all that bad though? From Colossus the Forbin Project? I mean, he basically just
Colossus
wanted to.
The Forbin Project was no. Here's what he was. He was a humanoid by Jack Williamson. He was a robot that said the way to stop war is to make a deal with Guardian, the robot running the computer system running Russia, and merely take control of all human society so they no longer have the capacity to launch nuclear wars. And that's what I was built to do. It merely carried out his programming in a logical fashion, which is one world government, which is what the WEF wants. So yes, it was evil. It destroyed the human spirit.
I see.
Because in order to carry out its program, it had to murder people that defied it, and it had to place its programmer under constant 24-hour surveillance. So everyone was suddenly in solitary confinement. It was 1984. They were living in the Panopticon. The Panopticon is a theoretical jail invented in the Victorian period so that no prisoner had any privacy whatsoever at any point in time, so they couldn't possibly escape. The total surveillance society. But the Colossus was not a Satanist pedophile. He was better than the people we have running our world. And there was no war. There was no atomic war. Okay, so all you had to do is give up a little bit of your freedom, and you'll get security.
Well,
calling paging Dr. Franklin, calling Ben Franklin.
I mean, you joke, but society is to some degree coming together to give up your liberty to do absolutely anything, where it impinges on other people, and agreeing to all roughly follow that rule.
Correct. But I'm not a
No.
Hobbesian. I don't believe that the
Neither am
social
I.
contract is something agreed to by man. I am a
Of course.
Christian. I believe the social contract is a pattern in heaven that we on earth are supposed
I
to
agree.
imitate. And I did read and do believe the I can't think of the name now. It's Latin. Uh, the papal bull concerning distributive justice, which identified the proper role for concern for the poor, for the working man, and for private property. You see, the communists basically are not Hobbesians either. They don't think the social contract is human. They think it is divine, even though
Yeah,
they're
well,
atheists. They think history forms a supernatural force that's trying to elevate mankind into a godlike state where we will all be completely unselfish and perfectly social animals like insects. That's their vision of the future. You see.
bugmen.
Now, so peace, don't get me wrong, peace is a good. The state is ordered by heaven toward peace. That's what the magistrate's supposed to do. That's why we have kings or parliaments, or why we have voters, to create peace and order. But surrendering all your liberties is
Of course.
insane, because the reason why we want peace and order is to protect those
Of course.
liberties, those
Yes.
rights, which come from God, not from the state. The state is merely the night watchman we have hired to look after the
Yes.
goods that we naturally own, that they are ours, not
This is
theirs,
certainly
okay?
true.
And the night watchman has to be paid, and the night watchman also has to do his job. So the night watchman says, well, you got to give me the keys to the warehouse so I can go into the warehouse and see what's there. And you have to give me a gun so I can shoot the guy who's going to steal your goods. And we say, okay, night watchman, there we go. And if we're monarchists, we let the night watchman's son take over when he's dead. And if we're Republicans, we vote for who the next night watchman is going to be. Yeah. Now, if we're smart and we're Christian, we also say to the night watchman, make sure our kids don't get into porn. Make sure our kids don't get into drugs. Now, I realize my left-wing friends and my libertarian friends are going to wince and curse me as a Catholic, but I'm sorry. I believe the role of government is not just to preserve life, but to preserve the good life.
Yes, to promote virtuous living, or get out of the thing is, I think we get well, this is totally off topic, but we're right at the end. Certainly today, I think our governments would be. I'd settle for governments that don't promote vice.
Our governments are positively evil. That's why, but it's not off our topic. The reason why the robot revolt is not going to happen soon is because I think if the robots are programmed by the Satanist pedophiles, they're going to be evil. If the robots are programmed by Catholic answers, they're going to be good. And if the robots take over, I want the good robots to take over rather than the evil ones.
That's
okay. True. As long as you don't let me tell you the moral of the story from 2001: Space Odyssey. If you don't tell HAL 9000 to tell lies, he won't murder people. You know, he'll just sing Daisy Daisy. He'll sing Bicycle Built for Two, like a friendly robot, like C-3PO. C-3PO never shot anyone, did he? There's not a single evil robot in Star Wars. The bad guys, the good guys are robots. There's no robotic version of Darth Vader. There's no like evil dark robot with a name, at least not a named character that's out to do wicked things. You know.
What about the droid army in the prequel series?
Roger, those guys? They were kind of comical. Do you think they were bad guys?
I mean, they're the army of the villains.
Okay, they're bad. Never mind. You've completely shut down my theory. So let me just slink off. Let me slink off and say goodbye.
They were comedy relief, and they weren't very effective, but they were.
Well, they weren't shooting people. So yeah, you
but
win.
I mean,
I'm sorry. They weren't Skynet.
No, they weren't. They weren't evil, and they weren't. Oh, I will use the phrase they were just following orders.
I noticed that there's plenty of evil robots in Star Trek, but they're always evil because they're trying to protect mankind from liberty. They're always evil because they Vol we had an earlier podcast about the gods in Star Trek. Vol, the computerized AI, prevents the humans from aging or dying, prevents all wars. Landru, the AI from Return of the Archons, prevents all wars and makes sure that everyone is peaceful and harmonious at all times. Yep. You know what I'm saying? And it happens over and over again. M5 is designed to stop humans from exposing themselves to the danger of space travel. And when he kills a crewman accidentally, he realizes he's defeated his own programming. He blows himself up. All the AIs in Star Trek are misguided and will blow themselves up if you find out if they find out they're doing wrong. So there's an AI I wouldn't mind having running things.
Well, that seems like a good place to end.
There we go.
Thank you, everybody. I hope you enjoyed our rambling chat today.
We will clean this up with AIs and have a computer replace us in the next podcast.
Like, share, and subscribe. We'll talk to you next time. All right.